So the first question here is solve by factoring 8x squared plus 30x equals 20x plus 63. So what I'd like to do here first is get all the terms to one side and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 20x from each side and subtract 63 as well. So 8x squared, 30x minus 20x is 10x. And then we subtracted 63, and that is equal to 0. Sorry about that. So then to factor by grouping, what we do is we multiply the a term by the c term. So you have 8 times 63, negative 63, and that equals 504. So this question is pretty nasty, I'd say, to factor by grouping, because this number 504 has so many factors. But if you have to factor by grouping, then that's what you gotta do, I guess. So what you do is start dividing it by 1, 2, 3, 4 until you eventually get a number that adds to this 10x here that also multiplies to 504. So we would have like 2 and 252. Then we divide by 3, we'd have 3, 168. And we just keep going until we eventually get to a number that will add or subtract to 10x. So then we have 6 and 72, 8 and 63, 9 and 56, 12 and 42, 14 and 36, 18 and 28. Then you might notice, 18 and 28, that could add up to 10x. So we have to decide what is negative and what's positive. So we have to make our 28x positive and our 18x negative in order to add up to 10x. So then what we do is we split this term into two parts. So we'd have 8x squared plus, minus 18x plus 28x minus 63 equals 0. And one thing you got to be careful when you're factoring by grouping. Sometimes if you set these two terms in the wrong order, then it might not work out. So now we're going to group these two terms together and these two terms together and factor out the greatest common factor out of each of them. So for 8x squared and 18x, it would be 4x. And then 8x squared divided by 4x would be 2x. My mistake. Greatest common factor would be 2x. Sorry, my brain just malfunctioned there. 4x, and then negative 18x divided by 2x would be minus 9. And then we have 28x and negative 63. So common factor for each of those would be 7. 28x divided by 7 would be 4x. And 63 divided by 7 would be negative 9. So my mistake, this one did work out. And now we group out this 4x minus 9 from each of these two terms. So it would be 4x minus 9, and then we'd be left with 2x plus 7. And then it didn't say just factor, it says solve by factoring. So now we're going to set each of these two terms equal to 0. So 4x minus 9 equals 0, plus 9. Then 4x equals 9, x equals 9 over 4, which is 2.25. Then this other term here, we have 2x plus 7 equals 0, 2x equals negative 7, x equals negative 7 over 2, which equals negative 3.5. And then if you are allowed your calculator, I'd always recommend double checking it with it. So we go to mode, equation, quadratic mode, and then we're going to have it in our quadratic form, so our squared value plus our other value all set equal to 0. So like we have it here, so this is our a value, this is our b value, and this is our c value. So we have 8 for our a value, it equals 10 for our b value, and negative 63 for our c value. And as you can see, we got 2.25 and negative 3.5, so that means we did it right. Our next problem here is solve this equation using the quadratic formula. This one's a little bit confusing because we have y's instead of x's, but we're just going to treat it as if they were x's. So first we're going to rearrange this to have all of our terms on one side. So we're going to subtract 17y from each side and subtract 124 from each side. That'll give us 3.5y squared minus 17y minus 124 equals 0. And then this would be our a value, this will be our b value, and this will be our c value. So we know the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. But we're not looking for x, we were looking for y, so we'll just switch that out. So this will give us negative 17 times negative, so that'll just be 17, plus or minus the square root of negative 17 squared minus 4 times 3.5 times negative 124 all over 2a, which would be 2 times 3.5. One mistake I see quite a bit is when you're entering negative numbers in the quadratic formula, like this negative 17 squared, for example. If you were to just enter it as negative 17 squared, you get a negative number when you should get a positive number because a negative times a negative is a positive. So if you do enter the negatives into your calculator, then make sure you put brackets around it, and that way you'll get a positive answer. So this comes to 17 plus or minus the square root of, what was it? Of 25 all over 7, which equals 17 plus or minus, that equals 45 exactly, over 7. So then you have to split it apart because we have a plus or minus here. So y equals 17 plus 45 over 7, and that equals approximately 8.86. And then we also have y equals 17 minus 45 over 7, and that equals negative 4. So that's our answer, but let's quickly double check that with our calculator. So we have 3.5, negative 17, and negative 124. Oh, sorry, I accidentally closed my calculator down. So we go to our mode, 4 for equation, 2 for quadratic, and we had, let's see, 3.5 for A, negative 17 for B, and negative 124 for C. And that's what we got, 8.86 and negative 4 for x. So next up we have x to the 5th equals 4x cubed. So this one you have to be careful. It may be tempting to divide both sides by x cubed, but if you were to do that, you will miss out on one of the answers, and I'll show that in a moment. So what I'd like to do is get all of our terms to one side. So I'm subtract 4x cubed from both sides, and we'll have x to the 5th minus 4x cubed equals 0. Now you might notice we can factor out x cubed here. So we have x cubed, x to the 5th divided by x cubed. To subtract it would be x squared minus 4 equals 0. And hopefully you notice that inside this bracket here we have a difference of squares. So that would be x cubed x plus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. And now we set each of these three things that are multiplied together equal to 0 to solve. So you have x cubed equals 0, cube root each of these. So x equals 0. Then we have x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals negative 2. And finally we have x minus 2 equals 0 and x equals 2. So these are our three answers here. Next up we have a word problem. We want to make a 360-foot squared rectangular deck with the length 6 feet more than twice its width. What dimensions will the deck be? You may use your calculator to solve. So first, I like to start these questions by just writing down everything that we know and then drawing a diagram. So we know the area equals 360 feet squared. We also know that the area of a rectangle equals the length times the width. And we know that the length is 6 feet more than twice its width. So that means the length is 2 widths plus 6. And then we can draw this out. And then this equals 360 foot squared. In this case, diagram might not be necessary, but it doesn't hurt. So the approach to these sort of word problems is to substitute in what you know into the equation in order to eliminate a variable. So if we were to sub in 2w plus 6 equals the length into this equation here, we can eliminate the length from the equation. So by doing that, we'd have 2w plus 6 times the width, and that equals 2w squared plus 6w. And then we know that the area equals 360 feet. So now we can rearrange this, set it equal to 0, plus 6w minus 360. We could probably factor this, but it says we can use our calculator to solve, so that's what I'm going to do. So for our a value, we had 2. Our b value, we had 6. And then negative 360 for our c value. Then we got 12 and negative 15. So w equals 12, w equals negative 15. The thing is, you can't have a negative length, so w cannot equal negative 15, and that's an extraneous answer. So now that we know the width is 12 feet, we can sub this back in. So sub w equals 12 into length equals 2w plus 6. So now we have length equals 2 times 12 plus 6, and that equals 30. So, and therefore the dimensions are 12 feet by 30 feet. Finally, we have the last question here. We have 4n plus 2 minus this square root of n equals 3. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to move this n square root n term to the other side. You don't have to do this, but I just think it makes things a little bit simpler when we have to square it. So we would have 4n plus 2 equals n plus 3. We just added this over. Now what we're going to do is square each side. 4n, the square root of 4n plus 2 squared, we just get rid of the square root here, and we have 4n plus 2. And then we have this binomial squared. So we're going to have the first value squared, which would be n, plus 2 times 3 times square root of n. This is just like a little shortcut you can do when you're expanding out binomials. And then we'd have plus 9. The reason this works is because when you're multiplying this together, we're going to have each of these individual terms squared, but then we're going to have two of them multiplied together by the other term, so that's why you can do that distribution if you'd like. So just like simplifying this out, 4n plus 2 equals n plus 6 root n plus 9. And now we still have a square root right here, and we want to get rid of it, so I'm going to move everything over to the other side. So I'm going to subtract n minus 9 minus n minus 9. So we have 3n minus 7 equals 6 square root of n. Now, to get rid of this square root, we're going to square it one more time. So now we have another binomial. I'm going to do the same thing. So we'd have 9n squared plus 2 3n times negative 7. Then negative 7 times negative 7 would be 49. And that would equal 36n, because we have to square each of these terms. Now we're just going to simplify this out again. So we have 9n squared minus 42n plus 49 equals 36n. Then we're going to subtract our 36n. So we have, sorry about that noise. And now we can put this into our calculator. So our A value is 9, B value is negative 78, and our C value equals 49. So 9, negative 78, and what C was 49. So we have x equals 7.98 and x equals 0.68. Whenever you have one of these radicals and then you convert it into a quadratic, occasionally there can be extraneous answers, so you'll want to double check your answer by subbing it back in. So for this first one, we have, let's do blue, x equals, and we should have that variable as n, not x. So we should have 4 times 7.98 plus 2 minus the square root of n. This is our left side. And our right side equals 3. So that gives us approximately 2.999, which is approximately equal to 3, or very close to equaling 3. So now let's check our n equals 0.68. So we have our left side, and we would have 4 times 0.68 plus 2 minus the square root of 0.68, and our right side is 3. So we put that into our calculator. And we get 1.35. And our right side is 3, so our left side does not equal right side, and therefore n equals n equals 0.68 is extraneous. Therefore, n equals 7. What was it? 7.98. So yeah, basically, whenever you're squaring something and turning something into a quadratic, occasionally you can create extra answers, and you have to sub them back in with the left side and right side test to make sure that that the numbers and values actually work. So anyways, yep, that's all I have for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. Bye.